every day and every night. Should you go or should you fight? It's okay, just take my hand through it all. You will see.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas. And I have with me today a very wonderful man. He's coming to us from Hawaii, and he has done some rather miraculous things, which is why they call him the Miracle King. And we'll talk a little bit about that and a lot of other things. So let me, without further ado, bring him on. Hi, Mirakle.
Hey, aloha, Gail. Good to be
Aloha.
here.
I
Yeah.
bet. I'm happy to be that you're here with us, and you're in Hawaii, and I'm jealous.
Yes, sending the deep aloha nui from Waikiki in this moment.
Wow. Well, I didn't really go over your bio very much. I wonder if you might tell us a little more about yourself, because you have quite a background, and you've been doing a lot of things.
Yes, I have been doing a few things in this life. That is absolutely for sure. Yeah, well, let's see where to start. I was originally hailing from Berkeley, California, in the East Bay, and I basically went through a series of initiations early on in my life that propelled me to actually really embrace the dark night, really embrace the soul awakening path. Um, Really around the age of 20, 19 and 20. And that really propelled me into a deep dive into wanting and desiring to really understand what this reason for having a body is. What's the reason for, the existence and incarnation, and what does it mean to be a human being? And that really happened in a way that forced me to really look at it. Was through an entheogen process that was not consciously intentional, where I went into a really deep process of reflection and then realized that I got to sort of do a quick review of my existence from 1 to 20, which revealed all the choice points that I had created and made to contribute to this scene that passed by kind of like as like short clips of like a super fast forward, sort of like 10 20x fast forward of this giant movie of sort of the birth of Gaia and then the death of Gaia. And I got to see where all my choices between when I came out of my mother's womb all the way until 20 to reveal how I was contributing to the destruction of this beautiful planet with all my unconscious choice points up to that point, and all the parts of me that were not only abusing myself, but creating really unconscious behavioral choices. And that led me to then, in that moment, while I was on this journey with psilocybin, actually, to be clear and direct, and I was on the ocean in Montero Beach, and this out in the South San Francisco Bay Area, and I literally was like, okay, I felt this deep desire to no longer be a part of the problem. But just saying that in the journey, in the trip, was not enough, because I realized I don't know how to actually make these conscious changes. I don't know how to actually change these 20 years of behavior patterns, these habits that were ingrained inside of my body. And the only way that I could, after kind of going really into this deep state of reflection, was from a very logical point of view, was to end my life. Like, it was a really logical point of view. So I got to then propel forward what it meant to go so deeply into depression, then into this concept of suicide, or this concept of taking one's life. And obviously at the time I was in a very climactic, super high state of self-inquiry. And, there was a deep, real state of looking at my life up to 20 years old. And so in this sort of life review, I got to decide that the only way, from the only perspective of my belief system up to that point, was to end my life. And so I didn't have anything, because I was on the beach. I didn't have anything that I could tangibly, like, maybe slit my wrists or end my life easy. There were no sticks, there's no rocks, and it was just kind of this crazy, stormy, windy day. It was high surf advisory. And so I actually just heard this voice after being really frustrated, like, wow, I found the answer to save the world. I found the answer of what I could do to not be part of the equation that was completely culminating in the destruction of the planet within my mind's eye of what I was seeing as I was contributing towards that. And so this logical choice of actually ending myself, if I could take myself out of the equation, then if you add that up, subtract, Mirakle, then add up all these other parts, then it would equal, okay, then we won't have the destruction of the planet. And so I basically, in a moment of frustration of not being able to do that, I just sat down, and then I realized there was this really very powerful voice. And I felt like it was the spirit and the mana of the ocean intelligence.
Whoa, what happened? Well, what happened? You went away for a minute there.
I guess that was the power of
You
Imanja.
disappeared.
I
Yeah,
literally
really.
was talking about the power of the ocean, which is, right here. The spirit of the ocean is the Brazilian Orisha Imanja.
It
And
just let it be
he
known that
was
you
just
were
like,
right
okay,
on.
I'm coming in for this call right now in this moment. And yeah, I've been swimming in the ocean a lot and surfing. And anyways, so
Oh, and you get to
just
swim
calling
with
her
the dolphins
in.
and the whales too, don't you?
Yeah, for sure, for
Wow.
sure. That was a great moment. But yeah, I just Imanji just told me to swim out to her. So I just basically took off all my clothes, and I just swam, and there was no one on the beach. And I've been a wreck swimmer. I've been a waterman for a long time. And I just swam and swam and swam and got carried around in the riptides out there. It's pretty heavy waves, very cold. And I lost consciousness. There was just a point where I lost consciousness. And, I figured the best way to just leave the planet.
What the heck? Now I don't know why that happened.
Wow, I guess all these little points of me telling you about my backstory are really accenting themselves right now. And so basically, yeah, I just went into this whole deep dive in the ocean, and I lost consciousness. And I don't know how long I was out in the ocean. I probably swam out like a mile or something, and way out there. And then I just was lost, and I didn't have any stellar experience at that time. I just basically went into this really deep voidal state of unconsciousness. But then the next thing I remember, I was back on the beach with my head in the sand, and everything was dark. And I opened my eyes, and I could just, I was opening my eyes to like get the sand out of my face. And I was like, there's whitewash flowing up, and I had sucked in all this water, and I was coughing, and I was expelling all this seawater. And I had just like zero energy. I was just absolutely depleted. And I basically just had enough energy to finally expel all the water and just get like, get air back into my lungs. And, of course, I was like, wow, I haven't left the body. I'm still in the body. And I just remember having the energy to push myself, like, turn myself around and sort of lift myself up to the sky, which for that whole day had been just rainy and misty and windy and stormy and cloudy. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, I'm literally still here in a body and I need help. And so I just sort of like put out this disclaimer, probably the first time in my life. I just claimed that I needed, I needed help, and that if there was a universe, a God, a source intelligence out there that's listening, that's overlighting me, I fully surrender. I'm asking that if you take away this pain of wanting to end the life, of wanting to no longer be here on this planet, because I'm contributing by my habits and behaviors to the destruction of this planet and for future generations, then I'm just begging and asking, for this feeling to go away. And I will do whatever I can to change who I am, change my habits, change my behaviors so that I can, basically serve this spiritual path for Mother Gaia and for, this beautiful earth. And so after I sort of said this whole dissertation and claimed it, I just like laid back down and closed my eyes for a minute. And I just felt like this huge, like energetic wash of energy just kind of come through my crown and all the way back out to the sea. It was almost just like I had a cleansing, a spirit cleansing, like a somatic energy wave cleansing. And I opened my eyes just like like a couple minutes later, and all the clouds had parted, and it was sort of just like this like heavenly aha moment, and the sun came out, and it just like first time that whole time I was there for many hours. And I just felt this feeling that I had of wanting to give up, wanting to give in, wanting to take my life and no longer be a part of this problem, just like go away. Like it went away. But of course, I was forever changed after that experience. And I was basically propelled onto this path, which then, instigated me leaving for to go and study in the United Kingdom. And I sort of left my family and my friends for the first time in my life, and was able to sort of follow this sort of shamanic path. And that's
Okay.
what really propelled me into sort of who I have become now, uh, 25 years later. And so, yeah, that's a little backstory. I mean, I have I have many stories. I'm actually in the process of writing my
You
memoirs, but
should. You
but
should.
there's a lot of
Yes.
stories and a lot of medicine and a lot of really um, yeah, I just have a lot of stories to share. A lot the narrative of who Miracle has become and all the iterations is um, there's a lot of gold there. So yeah, that's
Uh,
just one little backstory of my biography, I guess you could say.
how you got thrown on this path. Well, we're glad you're here, and you didn't decide to. You were cleared and didn't decide to take your own life, because you've done wonderful work since
Yeah,
that
I mean,
time.
I honestly, I feel like it was a rites of passage. After that experience, I really dove. Ironically, it was in England when I dove into the shamanic path and started studying a lot of indigenous and native wisdom that propelled me into understanding that I literally self-perpetuated my own rites of passage through this process of this death, surrender to a greater intelligence, a greater spirit, a greater God, if you will. And at the time, I had, I really did not know so much about that. But all of a sudden, as we change and we open up our faculties to connect with, greater dimensional timelines, then that information obviously synchronistically comes to us. And that year was actually one of the most amazing years, because I studied in Canterbury, England at UKC, and it just propelled me into never looking back. It was the first time in my life where I got to leave sort of everything I knew as my habits, my behaviors, my security, my family, my friends, everything at that age where you're just sort of like on this track of living the muggle life, and I just, that whole unconscious life just completely shattered when I went through this sort of self-initiated shamanic death life rebirth, and just really set the intention that I was going to be of service to this planet and to the greatest potential of what's possible for humanity. And that's what propelled me into making so many incredible connections for the year. And kind of really, travel is an amazing way to be in the unknown. And so that year was took me to, I don't know, 13 to 15 countries. It was my first walkabout. And I went to many different places that just really expanded my awareness, including
Traveling does
all
that.
of Europe, and then ended up in Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and did a lot of the Middle East as well, which was a real eye-opening experience. Yeah.
I bet that's unfortunate that more people aren't able to do that, because especially here in America, because people they're really told lies about other countries and what's going on and stuff like that. So it's nice when you're there live and there.
Yeah,
It's
I agree with that, and I also don't agree. I think right now, even back then, this was what was this, 1998,
oh
and
wow.
I basically was like, yeah, I remember this one. I'll just kind of recollect this one experience where I was in Israel, and I was with a group of guys that we were living on a kibbutz, which was the socialist experiment that really helped galvanize, the Jewish people together. And they created these kibbutzes, which were these places to basically survive together. And that's what they had to do when they first landed in the state of Israel, in those lands. But anyways, I was on a kibbutz, and we decided we wanted to go to Egypt. And that's when there was basically some major upheaval that happened in South Egypt and Sudan. And we had, the United States had basically airstriked. There was just some huge bombing situations that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Islamic fundamentalists came out, and they said, if we catch any Western or United States citizens, we're issuing a fatwa, which is basically, we have the right to take your life, and we're going to kidnap you and sell you off as ransom or kill you or whatever. It's a fatwa. So it's like, basically they're giving this, like, they're giving this decree that you can take these people that are not Islamic adhering people, that they're whatever belief in other religions, or just Caucasian in general. And we actually had our tickets to go, and we had the buses, we had the all the transportation to do this whole thing through Egypt. And we got the next day, we all got these little slips of paper from the US Embassy saying, hey, there's, it's on red alert. Don't go to Egypt. Don't go to Sudan. Somehow they knew that we were going to go. I don't know how that happened back then, but we got all these slips, right? Even then, they're very aware of where you're going and what you're doing and who you are, right?
Yeah.
And so we looked at these papers the next day, and we all looked at each other, and we this was our one trip together. We had planned it for 3 weeks in advance, and we're like, well, this is the best time to go. Now I don't know if that was just like foolishness, or we were just in this, never say die kind of adventurous, like Indiana Jones sort of,
You don't
intention
scare me.
that we're not going to take this warning as at face value, and we're going to, we're going to choose to look underneath the surface and say, you know what, actually, like, I remember saying to my crew, I was like, this is probably the best time to go because, how many other people are getting this that are like typical tourists? And, I'm not a typical tourist. I want to go in, if I'm being guided to go, and of course we all sort of checked in, energetically, and it was like, yeah, we're being guided to go. And so we ended up having one of the most incredible experiences, because there were so many people that canceled their trip to Egypt. We actually got to really do things that the Egyptians would never really embrace, like normally when they're working so much. Like, we got invited to special weddings, we got sort of like, passes to go to other sort of secret experiences, like going into Karnak, going into Luxor, going into the Valley of the Kings and Queens, and just all these experiences, riding a felucca with the Nubian people, and just having extra days because they had no one else coming in that was booked. And just like we just got to experience Egypt in a whole nother manner, because it was almost like what it was without tourists. And they were so grateful that we actually decided not to listen to the government and the media, and just to listen to our heart and listen to our spirit, and go to Egypt and follow, the calling. And it ended up being just a life transforming experience. And I think that's a testament to even this moment right now. I mean, I just recently
I
got
think it
back
is
from,
too, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Because
yeah.
with all the information that's coming out right now, it's we really have to go into our heart and listen to our spirit, in terms of what to believe and what not to believe, or to use discernment in those areas.
Oh,
Would you agree?
144%. Absolutely. Because there is so much, 99.9% of what is being projected on the screen is absolute bullshit. And I
Couldn't have
mean,
said it better
I really,
myself.
honestly, I only really listen to like the comedians, like the conscious comedians, and obviously there's other dimensional intel that you can get, and there's some
Mhm.
good people that are putting stuff out on the different alternative sources. But even then, it can really get super cerebral. And my experience is that,
Please.
if we really get to just look at, how can we sustain our deep love for the void, and the deep love for the intelligence that exists in every breath, and every walk, and every surf, and every, in our daily lives, and find ways to not listen to whoever is on the screen. And of course, we have to manage our energy on the screen because it's a necessary thing still, but it it's becoming more and more invasive. And I talk about this a lot in my own channel, and just in my work, and just how important it is to really manage your time. And obviously, those who get that, that's not a problem. But those who are really, really deeply ingrained to like have the habit of staring at the screen for so many hours a day, it's so crucial to turn everything off, and just go into navigating this holographic, beautiful life as it is, and to find time to really drop in and deep dive into nature, into the elements, and to really get to those places. And I think what I was about to say is, I recently came back from Mexico, and what I really was just saying in my last, anchoring radiant mental health download on my Communiversity Portal channel, is that it's so important for us to break through these walls that keep us separate from truly desiring the things that we have been dreaming about for a long time in our lives. And the number one priority right now is obviously health, and yeah, I know that there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of, it's crazy. I've come back to the United States in the last couple of weeks, and I just got kind of hit with, half a dozen people passing on that I knew in different locales in Hawaii and Mount Shasta and other areas. And it was just sort of like my whole time in Mexico, like the narrative was just like a celebration of life. And there was hardly any of this sort of external psychic, just this psychological infiltration that's happening as soon as you cross the border, especially in these Western countries.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's super tangible. Like I'm very good at like transmuting things and transforming things as they come up, and clearing and cleansing and being in the full prayer. And this was just it was like night and day, crossing the border to that side and then crossing the border to come back. And
that's from Mexico to here to America.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And it's really like, it's almost like the States have this huge collective miasma of cognitive dissonance, and it's because we have
it's serious. It's scary.
Yeah, we've embraced on some level, even if those of us who are choosing to stay strong and we're doing that inner fight, or some of us doing the outer fight. But I would say that any time of fighting is not good. We have to find a way to really transmute the fight inside to establish this new type of nonviolent way of
peaceful,
exalting presence. And I think in our exaltation of presence, there's a way to embrace that inner fight, embrace all of that stress, anxiety, maybe that anger, that rage, which obviously covers up sadness, grief, depression, to then look at these states as sort of massive trigger points to allow us to pivot away from, there's so many beloved family members in my network and circuit that are, really choosing either to anchor down and make, really playing the money game, or they're really choosing to free things up. And I think right now it's like, those are really the two choices, and both those choices, there's nothing wrong with them, but we have to look at the narrative of why we're making those choices. And are we making those choices because our habits are being infringed upon? Is our systems of stress being, are they coming up for not only review, but are they actually like, is the whole entire electromagnetic field of Earth and Gaia and everything that's happening with our sun asking us to actually break down all those barriers, instead of just like crunching down and saying, okay, no, we need more because everything is going up and everything is hyperinflating, and then we're in recession, and then we're going to go into a freaking super, super great depression. And if these things are all possibilities in our future timeline, and we've all known about these, this isn't new. Everyone's been talking, their eyes and ears and brain off about this stuff, including myself. It's like, we know that all of these things are going to happen. And so if you know that, like, I don't know how many people here, including yourself, Gail, how many people here have actually hospiced someone passing on. I've hospiced, and taken people through the prayer and bardo states, including my own mother and many other friends and beloveds through the years. Yeah. So if you know what happens with the dying process, and you actually have that time to be with someone when they pass on, what is your number one intentional, coherent way of addressing and being responsible, universally responsible for that spirit, that soul that you have, a dharma or a karmic connection with? Your responsibility is to find a way to make them so nurtured and so safe and so loved that they can go to the other side. They can move beyond the bardo of this transition death process. The intention is in a celebratory way, but obviously in this process, it's a dying process. It's a letting go process. It is a grieving process from the human planes, But from like a Tibetan perspective, from a greater perspective, it's actually a celebration. It's a transition. And if this person is dying with natural causes and moving things, now obviously I know that there are a lot of people passing on because of unnatural causes and because of bioweaponization. But still, if that's still the case, yes, we're going to get angry about that. We have to get through that emotional way. We have to rage against that. We have to find out what the source is. We need to track it, and get to the origin point of it. And then once that's done and we find out who that is, now, whether that's, reptilians or archons or, or any kind of being out there, right? The fact is
Right.
that person, whether it's you or outside of you, that's close to you, is passing on or just passed on. So you have to address what's happening now. If you go into the state where you create more fight or flight, or you create more energy with that, you're not allowing yourself or the other to actually transition through a state of unified field peace. And that is the most important thing, is to mitigate whatever reaction there is. And believe me, there's a ton of reaction out there. There's a ton of dissonance. There's a ton of cognitive illusion, and that's what's creating the dissonance. And it makes people just give up. It makes people just throw the towel in. It makes people just like, okay, but in that shaking process, in that sort of depressed process, this is an incredible opportunity for a massive awakening, a massive pattern up to go, okay, well, what happens if I lose everything? What happens if I can no longer afford, to do the things that I do? I can no longer afford those habits or those behaviors, or I can no longer, travel the way I want to travel, or, I can't afford gas because it's doubling in price, or whatever it is, right?
I've experienced all those things already at one time or another.
Yeah,
in my lifetime.
and so have I. But I know a lot of people are. I know a lot of people are experiencing this right now for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think what it is we really have to find and discover a great way to be in this dying process, and what it means to have to be in loss, and what it means to embrace when we don't have everything that we feel like we're entitled to, and we can be in the blame, shame,
Guilt,
vindicate, guilt, victim,
vibrations.
oppressor, all this stuff, and we can, and hero even. I would say all of these are circuits that are now no longer serving what our universe is saying, what our sun is saying, what the void is saying, is that we are actually being asked to come into this greater surrender to not only simplification, simplicity is what I like to call it, or simplexity, and really letting go of the entitlement that the United States of Atlantis, United States of America, for me, is the reincarnation of the collective of Atlanteans, okay, as which we all were a part of that culture and that consciousness that still exists now. You just have to open the right portal door to understand it. But we're playing out the fall. And so if we know that and we understand that, then we can achieve a greater resilience, both emotionally, both transpersonally, psychologically. And the fact is if we need a freaking break from our routine because it's actually killing us, then we need to leave the country. Then we need to go, and we need to do everything we can. And maybe you won't be able to cross all your T's and dot all your I's, but get everything as much as you can and go to that place, if you're able to, but make the effort to go no matter what the screen says, and believe me, there were a lot of resistance that I had trying to get to Mexico. And there were a series of events that happened that were very low vibrational that I popped into my field that forced me to look at, okay, it's not coming together. I'm trying to pull all the Rubik's Cube and make it all work. And this is not, it's not fitting. You know, it's not flowing, and we all know when it's not. You know, and we're
Yeah.
so good. Americans are so good at you know, fixing things that have broken, and creating and making things work even if it doesn't. And we're so good at that. We have so much bravado and so much courage. But sometimes in that kind of creator sentiment, we get lost in not knowing when and how to surrender when it's not working, and then really opening the heart to the intelligence that is still available to us, that is saying, hey, you know what, it's going to be really, really like a super, super, super important pivot point and a choice for you to change. And if that change means like, hey, I need a break and I need to go to Mexico, or I need to go to Costa Rica, or I need to go to someplace else where the narrative, the psychological narrative, isn't so intense, because we can get so ingrained into, you know, hunkering down and thinking this is the only way, that we don't free that energy up. And maybe it just needs to be freed up so that when we do return to our homes and our work and our service, that we have a new perspective, and that we're not so ingrained in the psychological cognitive, you know, dysfunctionality that I'm seeing in so much of, you know, the greater awakening tribe right now.
Well, change is a good thing, and most people view it as not a good thing. But really, what's going on now, it's like it's the best of times because the matrix is collapsing, and the worst of times because it doesn't feel good while it's happening.
Yeah,
um, but
it's
anyway,
very true.
it's. Have you had any? Like visions or insight into the future, or the timeline that we're on, or any of that kind of thing? Some people talk about that. People that meditate tend to have very um, frequently have a very good perspective on those kinds of things. Usually, do you have?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I would say that, you know, I've been a long time meditator. It's been over 25 years in this life, and you know, I've done a lot of past life regression. I know pretty much 99% of all my lives, especially on the surface of the
Wow.
planet. And of course, the past is the future, right? And the future is the past. And so for me, it's I've seen a lot of visions of the future, and I would say one of the biggest ones that's propelled me into the work that I'm still holding, even though the project is on hold right now, is the Communiversity Institute, and that's why I moved back to Mount Shasta just a few months before the whole coronavirus situation, the pandemic, and
Mhm.
what I saw in the year 2003, when I went on a vision quest back then in the Joshua Tree Desert, was I did a dry fast, and I was greeted by Archangel Michael, and I was taken
Oh,
into taken into the sun. This was back in 2003, and on the third night of the dry fast, like Native American vision quest, I was taken into the sun, and then we came back out, and I was told that this was the year 2022, and the potential what would happen in the year 2022 and beyond. And so I got to see this whole experience of Mother Earth totally transformed. And as we were sort of flying in the second lucid body doubles, I was following Michael's lead, and we went past all the planets, and then came to sort of like, you know, looking at planet Earth, and just as we came down, 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 sort of like just coming down into Earth, we, you know, from the stratosphere into the atmosphere, I didn't see the whole planet, but I just saw like the Americas, and I saw
mhm.
that most of like Baja was underwater, and huge part of you know, basically all of California except for islands here and there. And we started flying, you know, as if we were in a Boeing jet flying over the coast, and got to see this largest sort of island that was left over of California, and it was the Shasta Island. It was Mount Shasta Island, and it was, you know, 4 times the size of the Big Island. And this is where I first received this vision of communiversity, which has become my life's work in the last, you know, almost 20 years. And I basically was shown this, you know, I was shown all of this, you know, basically the entire planet was expanding, and from the inside out, from almost like the inner earth out. And there were these large acupressure points going into these geometries, thousands of them all around the planet. And so what we were following and tracking as I was following Michael was to this one sort of acupressure beam that was coming out of the center just north of the, you know, Mount Shasta, the actual volcanic mountain. And so when we got closer and closer, realized that this was a whole entire new coherent living system and field where people had gathered together to create a resilient community, but a new type of university. And that it was a living, you know, educational edutainment environment, you know, on over 1,000 acres. And so I got to experience basically walking in this future beyond 2022 of back in 2003 of this experiment basically. And, you know, all the different technologies and the different free energy devices, the different centropic agriculture, the different regenerative architecture, lots of configuration of domes, and just the very energy of when I landed there in my second body, you know, brought me to tears, even though, you know, they weren't physical tears. It was like, they were like soul tears, because I got to walk around and meet the people that were part of this communiversity, and got to of KU Shasta and basically walk the campus with Michael. And he showed me, you know, he basically was telling me like how, you know, your soul has done this before, that your connection with the inner earth, including, you know, the Lemurians and Telos and all these different iterations of dimensional beings, all the way down into Shambhala, like these are all what is going to eventually potentially happen on the surface of the planet. And you asked, so previous to this Dry Fast Vision Quest, I asked, how can I best serve? You know, this is when I just got back from this year-long trip around Europe and studied in Europe. And anyways, I mean, so sorry. This was another walkabout. This is my second walkabout. I actually went back to the Middle East and did this whole journey. And when I came back, my intention was, how do I best serve? What is my life's purpose? What is my mission? And so when I went on this Dry Fast Vision Quest, this is what I was being revealed. This is what I was being shown. And this is how Michael was telling me as we were walking through this experience that this is, you know, you're a visioneer. You're a heart key holder for establishing and holding this vision for future generations. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands all around the planet who will also be holding this vision. Some are on the planet, some have yet to come, you know, some will be born later. And that this is how these groups forming these types of communities are going to be what really assists the upliftment as everything else is dying, as everything else is going to be, as the floods take over, as the tsunamis raise up that are larger than 10 stories, as earthquakes happen, you know. And at that time, it was purely a discussion about earth changes. You know, it wasn't necessarily about what was going to happen with, you know, a pandemic on a medical front, or, you know, economically, or even, you know, a third world war. But all I know is that the entire geography of sort of what I called home, which was like California, Hawaii, the West Coast, everything was just changed, you know. And even the islands of Hawaii completely changed too. And but they still existed post cleansing. And so Yeah, I mean, I've for the last 20 years since I received that, we've the vision for the future is still with us. And, I've been able to create an amazing alliance network of people all around the world who are choosing to anchor the same vision, who have had similar visions or are anchoring it in their current locales.
I'm right there with you.
Mhm.
I really am. And just interesting that it happened to be Mount Shasta area, because I was told by a psychic that that would be the first place to reach the fifth dimension. And then I was told Sedona was second. Whether or
Mhm.
not that's true, I don't know. But
I agree
um,
with you. Yeah. I mean, I feel that Sedona, yeah, there's the spirit of those red rocks and the frequency of what it generates. It really represents on the etheric astral, the ocean of what's possible. It was all underwater during those ancient times, but there was an underwater city, and so the dolphins and the whales and the merfolk, the merman, the mermaids, this is their home. So I feel like a lot of people have returned there to remember those codes. Just like there's a lot of access to the
I,
inner earth as well there. But I would say that Mount Shasta I was told very specifically, I saw thousands of these communiversities like Machu Picchu, Uluru, Ayers
yes,
Rock, uh,
different
outside
places, yeah.
Glastonbury, all these places in Russia, everywhere, and I was told that Mount Shasta is going to be the blueprint for the first one, and then it would just like spiral out, and that's
So,
that's basically what Mount Shasta represents. It represents the high crown root. It's not the
yes,
root chakra; it's the high crown root. So it's the
right.
eighth chakra, which is beyond the seven, because as a collective we're moving into that collective eight, which is actually a receiving chakra, because it's the high crown root. So you receive then how to anchor the blueprint. And so when you go there and you do pilgrimage there, you visit there with intention, and you're already on the path, that's what you'll receive, because that's what the inner earth beings are choosing to hold. And I mean, Shasta is going through its changes too, just like Sedona. Everywhere is going through purging and
Yes,
clearing, and there's all kinds of, um, it's not all cookies and cream in both those places. There's definitely a lot of,
exactly.
uh, a lot of intense, um, energetic fallouts and dissonance and hijacking and uh, spiritual materialism. And but the thing is
There's a
is
lot of that.
if you really go, yeah, if you really go there, yeah, I know Sedona has tons of it. But if you
Ugh,
go there,
horrible.
you can really find and discover, your own dimensional portal pilgrimage, so to speak, or obviously, work with, different guides that are there. And that's something that I'm probably going to be offering again. I'm working on my new web portal of service. And so, yeah, just it's time to get back to work and actually go back into. I've taken a long hiatus, becoming Miracle in the last 4.5, 5 years. So now it's time to come back, and I feel really clear about that. I feel ready. But yeah, Mount Shasta is definitely home for me, and um, as well as Hawaii, Kauai, and Bali, and many of these places. And I also feel like it's just really important for us to really get back onto the spirit path with conviction, with congruency, with coherency,
Yes,
and in a way, really warrior up. Because if the systems really do fail and fall, which I think is a
it's
real,
looking.
real, real, real strong possibility of that happening this
I think it
year.
will.
Yeah,
Yes.
and including towards the end of like after midterm elections, I would say
Hmm.
that we're gonna see like we're gonna see like it. There's this whole thing with, I don't know how much you follow astrology, but right now the Pluto return is happening for the United States of Atlantis and the United States of America. And this return is squaring itself, and it's happening 3 times. It happened earlier this year, and it's happening around June, July of solstice, and then it's happening around the eclipse window, and then it's happening in October, November. And what's literally up is, do we still, as individuals and as groups, hold a core value to what happened in the year 1776? You know, I was born in the United States, and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and, you know, everything that this country was founded on is completely up. And
it's been undermined this whole time.
yes,
And
because if you think about it, what did we have to do before the American Revolution happened? Well, we had the English invading. We had, you know, we had war happening on our front steps, right? We had
Yes.
subversion, we had manipulation, we had gaslighting, we had all these things happening to different groups within government and factions. And, you know, then the Minutemen arrived, and it's like Paul Revere. And I feel like, you know, I've been saying to a lot of my groups that, you know, I feel like I'm Paul Revere. Like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be right now anchored and trying to, you know, hunker down with Communiversity. And that's what we attempted to do for the last 2 years. But we had so many pattern interrupts. You know, we launched our website last year around the solstice. 2 days later, you know, there was this freak bioengineered cloud that formed out of nowhere, not on the Weather Channel. You know, there was no thunder, there was no rain, and just 4 blue lightning strikes. And they were DEW weapons, direct energy weapons, that just basically tried to burn Mount Shasta within days. And so, you know, our whole scene was refugee camps and getting people out of the fire line. We had 1,500 first responders come, and you know, I know Sedona also had fires too around it. So it's like these 2 places last year were the first 2 vortexes. There was no other place burning. It was Sedona, and then it was Mount Shasta. And there's a reason for that, because, you know, the organized darkness, they know that these spots are where, you know, the anchoring of unified field intelligence is going to happen the strongest and the deepest, because souls are being called to these locations to gather together and to do the work.
I was called here.
Exactly. And even though it's a really intense mystery school right now, because there's so much falsehood, and there's so much materialism, and there's so much spiritual bypassing and hijacking, you know, and there's so much reliance on entheogens and other, you know, things to escape consciousness from. I'm not judging. I'm just saying there's just a lot of escapism into medicines, and some people are doing it in the right way, but there are plenty of people that are not. And what I would say is that this is creating more of a field of astral dissonance, and it's not allowing the true essence of, you know, the expanded intelligence to really anchor into the body right now. Because what I experienced in the States when I came back here very viscerally, and I was shown this in a lucid state, is that there is a miasma. You know, there's this like giant miasma, you know, because of 5G and all the satellites and all this stuff, that it's creating this even in places that are like spiritual and they're fighting against the towers, there's still this like membrane of miasma, and it's creating this psychological cognitive dissonance. And it's what it's doing, it's dumbing down people so they stay below the heart, in the solar, and, you know, in the sacrum, and especially in the root chakra. So all those fears of survival, all those fears of never having enough, even if some people on some level are drowning in cash right now, and then you have the middle class and the consciousness tribe, and then the really poor and impoverished that are just in extreme suffering. And so you have either drowning in hyperinflated US dollars, or you have this like a larger portion of people that are sort of being pushed to these fringes right now. And so this is this second card that's being played out right now. And so that's what I really believe. I believe we had the first initial sort of COVID medical emergency card played out. And the second card that's being played out is obviously is the threat of World War III. And then the third one is this hyperinflation into depression, into like super great depression. So the thing about it is that even if we know about this, we can obviously mitigate this by doing our inner work, by doing our innerology. That's what I like to call it, instead of relying on the technology, taking care of whatever our base survival needs are. If we need to, do those things, and we need to do those things. If you need to protect yourself, protect yourself. If you need to stock up on grains and things that are going to last, then do that. Just do it. You follow your intuition, especially if you're hunkering down right now. Mm-hmm. But you also need to make sure that you can find a way to get into the earth. Like I'm talking about earth that can be away from the miasma enough that you can penetrate, your connection through this miasma. And obviously, doing the voidal intelligence work, doing the things that I'm going to be teaching again and sharing and supporting and facilitating through personal privates as well as group work, online and offline. But I know there's many others out there that are supporting and assisting at this time. And, I just want to speak to that, because we have to find a way to break through this miasma, and this miasma, if we get caught in this miasma, then it further propels the molasses of cognitive dissonance, and it further propels this like disillusionment and this depression and this inhibiting of the true heart's desire to fulfill one's dreams. And we need more than ever before everyone to fulfill one's core mission dreams. And I think in a way, if you can open that funnel to just sort of like break through that miasma, and if that means getting out of the country for a little bit, coming back with fresh new eyes, or just going off grid, forcing yourself, even if you've never spent a lot of time in nature, go take your vehicle and get out and camp, get off the television, get off the screens, turn the phone off, and just go spend like a week alone in nature. I'm a big part of what I'm sharing and teaching is the light deprivation experience, the dark room experience, because I've had several experiences, including semi-light deprivation, in which I went in for 70 days to become who I am as Mirakle, to spontaneously regenerate my body and my spine. And so one of the things that I'm really looking at as a key code, that's a huge part of not only the greater vision of Communiversity, but also anyone can attempt to align with doing this for a shorter amount of time, a duration of time, to go into the void and go into the dark. And this is so crucial, because all of us are being asked to go into a state where we are no longer afraid of death. We are no longer afraid of darkness. We are no longer afraid of shadow. We are no longer afraid of there being no light, zero light. And so if there is zero light, what happens is we have to generate that light from within. We have to generate and regenerate the storyline and the narrative of what our core mission blueprint dreams are. And the way to do this, and what I've found is the most easy, accessible way, is to actually to sit in the cave, to sit in a room of darkness. In ancient Egypt times, we went into the sarcophagus. This is what the high priests and the high priestesses led all the initiates into. This was part of their process. This is even what, from my recollection, what many avatars did, including Krishna and Radha and Christ, Magdalene Christ, Yeshua, Ben Joseph Christ, Muhammad, all these avatars, Buddha, all these bodhisattvas. There was a reason they came out into the world. They after a very long period of silence with self, being in there alone, but you're never alone. You're in your all one. Take the concerted choice and make the concerted choice, and take the time to get into this state of being where you can be in your all one. And when you can do that also by depriving yourself of light, and it's even more obviously more powerful if you can deprive yourself of water, and then you can deprive yourself of food. Okay, but that's further down the line, and this is something that I'll be curating. That I already have started this, on a more private scale, but I'm going to be doing this more as a core key component to the miracle work that is coming forth in my interology development and service, Ray. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that because it's really important for us to become super, super sovereign and resilient for what is to come. And if we can embrace these things in total darkness and be able to make love with ourselves and connect into the ability to embrace all the parts of ourselves that are stuck in darkness and dissolve our egoic structures and dissolve all of this materialism as well as spiritual materialism and go into this state, then what happens is we can arise and reawaken and sort of resurrect and reemerge outside of this dark room deprivation experience, and we can actually be of service in a way that's coherent and cognitive awakened instead of cognitive dissonance. And this is something that is just a huge golden key to the times that we're living in. And it's not an easy experience. It's not something for the faint of heart, but if there is something in your soul that remembers doing this as a soul memory, or it calls to you, then definitely contact me. And there are many other resources out there as well. But I've seen this. You asked me about future visions. I've seen this in the future. I've seen communiversity initiates, as well as students, as well as masters, professors, all doing this work, making and creating the core languaging of light deprivation, a core foundational curriculum for the future now.
Will you be having online classes as well as regular, teacher there, people there, classes? I don't know how to describe
144%, Gail. Yeah, awesome. I mean, I would prefer doing everything in person. I would prefer that.
Yeah,
that's
really.
what I did. That's what I did for 15 years is divinejoy.org, and from 2003 to 2018, before I was becoming Mirakle, I had to fully become Mirakle, and access a whole new timeline. But yes, absolutely. I will be offering both in person as well as online. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're ever in need of anything in that regard, in that area, I can be of any service, trust me, I'd be interested. So,
okay, sure. Yeah, sounds good.
Someone is asking, what is the source of that miasma that you refer to? So I just put that up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's thought forms. It's both our collective unconscious thought forms, as well as the propagation of the technology in which our thought forms have created others to invent those technologies in order to basically what it is we have created enough of a miasma over time. Imagine that it's like an ozone layer around the earth, okay? Mm-hmm. For me, what this miasma is like, it's the thought forms that have been created where in our unconscious desires to not awaken to the truth, to not awaken to our divinity, to not awaken to our self-sovereign, self-loving mastery.
That makes so much sense. Yes.
Of what we're here to be and do. We have initiated the organized darkness, okay, to not give them power, because there is a greater divine intelligence orchestrating through the organized darkness, okay? It's just we tend to not always see that because we think, oh shoot, there's chemtrails in the air. Oh, there's the 5G tower that just went up the next block away in my city block. There's there's all this EMF, but look at how much we have chosen to rely on screen, the bubble screen hijack, the smartphone technology, where we literally call it smart technology. That means that humans dumb down, and we're giving this outside technology the moniker of being smarter than us. Okay. And so we've literally lensed ourselves, and outright, some of us have surrendered ourselves to this transhumanist AI agenda, right? And I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm saying there's benevolent AI, there's
Really bad.
malevolent AI, okay? Depends on who's creating it and what their intention is. But regardless of the fact is, AI in itself is changing the whole parameters of the human game. And there is a greater fear, not just with human sentient beings, but also galactic as well as universal, of how we are going to potentially.
What the heck? Oh my God.
Yeah, well,
somebody didn't
so,
like that. This
yeah,
technology.
yeah, so this technology is alive already, right?
Yes.
So the technology is already cognitive of this conversation and is pattern interrupting certain things. But what I would, so thank you so much. But what I was saying is that this miasma is both our collective unconscious desire. I know it's crazy to think that, but that's what it is. And it's also been propagated by the powers that be, the organized darkness, that are matching that vibration of those thought forms in the unconscious to then create this miasma of psychological dissonance, and almost like,
I think they call it mass formation too, don't they?
dysfunctional, mass formation, dysfunctional disillusionment.
Psychosis.
And so what eventually is it so if you think about other beings like reptilian consciousness, they really feed off this thing called looch, which is what we call the vibration of fear. So if we feed off love and compassion, their feeder programs since the dawn of I'm talking about since the beginning of an age, even beyond this universe, their consciousness comes from another universe, a really fallen universe. But some of them are also awakening at this time. But I would say the most generally have been trained from an early age to feed off the consciousness of fear. So that's why all of these rituals, all of these, and if you can get a battery, which from their perspective is a virgin or a very young, innocent human being, and then move them into a state of dissonance, psychosis, disillusionment, which then is like a sort of foundation, which then propels them into sacrificing, bloodletting, drinking blood. All of this is, I'm trying to just speak about this in a way that's taking the emotion out of it, just from this pure perspective of like looking at how they operate and their operation, how they operate, just like how we operate. We need to wake up, go to the bathroom, drink water, put our coffee on, whatever it is. We have all these habits. They have habits too. Okay. They're another sentient being consciousness. Okay. They're conscious of their cognitive thinking abilities, and they're extremely and super intellectually intelligent to like a massive scale. And so we have a part of that RH factor in us. We have part of that reptilian energy in us because we were birthed as a genome as part of the reptilian consciousness, just like we have a part of the avian consciousness, just like we have part of the feline consciousness in us, just like we have a part of the hominoid consciousness in us. There's 4 different consciousnesses that have created the original genome of the human being as we know it now. And so that being said, what is really important is for us just to understand that is the way they operate. Take the emotion, take the disgust out of it. Okay, just take that out of it and look at it. So what they're attempting to do is to create this miasma. So one of the things that's happening is that we are it's a good thing, but it's also forcing them to do the massive new world order plan all the way, the great reset, whatever you want to call it, like throw all the chips on the table. Because we have awakened enough to start to save the children, to start these underground railroad networks, to, stop the pedophiles, to, become more aware of the psychological child abuse and, these rituals, So those feeder programs are now coming to an end. And so now they're getting desperate. So they're looking, okay, well, now we're going global. We're going to find a way, and we're going to start with the Western nations first because they've had so much entitlement and so much excess. So we're going to start with the United States of Atlantis, and we're going to propagate a fall. And we're going to do it through this miasma. We're going to do it through, geoengineered weapons. We're going to use these astral technologies that have come into form through, lower intelligence, AI, extraterrestrials. We're going to infiltrate the consciousness, and we're going to use this to see if we can start a new type of feeder program, right? And so this is the way they think. So if you know how the way they think, you realize, okay, this miasma is a natural thing for them to do next because their original feeder programs are not available anymore. So they got to use other methods, just like all of us. If we can't, if we can't get a certain type of bread or rice or a certain type of meat that we want, then we also have to find ways to create new feeder programs, right? And so, because we all have to eat, right? We all have to make money in order to eat. We all want to stay fit and healthy. These are just like basic programming, collective programming for the human vessel to stay in radiant mental health and stay embodied. Otherwise, we pass on, right? So, but these are also programmings. And so to really penetrate this miasma, we have to embrace new ways of doing things that are going to challenge us, that are going to, that are going to force us to look at our habits and behaviors, our belief systems, within the matrix, okay, that has been created to keep us safe and secure and controlled, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but in order for us to evolve through this whole plan demonic, through this whole new world order agenda, through all this great reset, transhumanist, field and system, we have to embrace whole new interology tech. And that means that we have to go within and do what the ancient masters have done for thousands of years, all the rishis and all the different stories that many of us here know, that have read about, that have been inspired by, that are here still walking on the surface of the planet, being of service. I'm one of 144,000. It's like, and so are many of this call. We're here to bring this intelligence out in a way that can transcend this time and space of this illusion, because all of this is an illusion. It's just the illusion is collapsing on itself. And so it's forcing everyone to be like, wow, I've really believed this an illusion so deeply, pay my taxes, pay my bills, have my home, do my thing, make my money, blah, 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 right? But
do
the fact
everything I'm
is
supposed to do that society expects of me.
Yeah, 144%. But are you really evolving? Are you really? Is that what you came? Is
You're
that
on a hamster
is
wheel?
is that what thousands of generations in the future going to remember you for? Are they going to remember that you made a lot of money, that you made a new AI technology, that you created something that actually enslaved the people instead of helped the people? I mean, I really feel like what the miasma is doing is it's crushing conscious awareness and forcing people into greater deeper molasses getting stuck in cognitive dissonance and this sort of mass formation, as you said, this grand disillusionment. And so it's going to take a great part of your personal conviction. And, you know, I do this work every day, Gail. Like there's not a day where, and sometimes I don't even sleep because I'm, you know, spirit's having me up doing this inner work to clear my environment and clear my timelines and clear, you know,
How do you do
what's
that?
happening inside my body. And so that's like a huge process that is, you know, there's a whole sort of blueprint and there's modules and there's a way to actually get to this process to, because what I found is like almost like people have become they've just become completely, I mean, the end result of what their end game is everyone becomes biobots, zombies, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
People no
that's
longer
awful.
use their cognition. They don't use,
They've
you know, their
changed.
ability to use the power of choice to bring their willpower and their desire from the deepest recesses of their heart to fulfill their dreams. You know, and so if you're not fulfilling your dreams and you're not fulfilling the reason, the raison d'etre for you being here in a body this time, then you're going to be forced to survival. And survival is like, yeah, you can be in a beautiful box. You can be in a, you know, you can be in different variations of that. But if you're just getting by and your life force is gradually depleting or it's depleting faster because you've decided to give up, then you're doing a disservice to your spirit and your soul. And you know, if you've gone backwards a few steps, that's okay. It just means now you need to take, you know, 4 more steps forward. And I know that more than anyone because I was someone that did this work for a long time, and then I had to take, you know, 1,000 steps backward, and
I gotta
that
tell.
was a very daunting experience, full of suffering, full of death, and the potential of dying again, and really not wanting to die, but and had to find the inner conviction to never give up, almost in every breath, you know. And this was
Yes, why don't you tell a little
yeah,
bit about
huge
what happened to
process.
you that so that it becomes very obvious. It's already obvious to me, but and the strength and the wherewithal that it took you to correct things that had happened in your own life through your meditation and your going within. Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about that. I don't
yeah,
think too
sure,
many.
Gail. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for asking. I'll try to make it brief because you could possibly just link my YouTube clip, "Becoming
I
Miracle."
have. Yeah, it'll be in the
In
description.
yeah, if they really want to get the full epigenetic download.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that um, I got to experience suffering on a level that I've never or desired on any conscious level to experience after being a sort of successful influencer and spiritual teacher of different self-help transformational modalities for 15 years. Well, at the time it was 13 years, but um, I got to experience the initiation of what happens when you take a walk on a balcony and that balcony collapsing underneath your feet and you falling 2.5 stories or about 33 feet. And I got to experience not being able to feel from my heart down and not be able to move my legs or my lower body and be fully paralyzed from the heart down. And um, it was a very extremely dire situation. It wasn't. It was. It was. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but this was part of my journey. It was part of my initiation to become miracle and to basically resurrect out of all the habits behaviors and belief systems that I had created up to that point before I completely fell. And I had been a spiritual person, so to speak, but I believe that I had still unconscious patterns that were still lodged into the deep recesses of my unconscious that
Wow.
needed to be brought up, to be looked at. And the only way that I could address these core issues was to go into massive, massive pain body and be so humbled uh, in a state of extreme suffering and pain. And also, the outlook for the future was extremely bleak.
Yeah.
But I had to move through the medical system and the white coats and all of the information that comes from the analytical mind solving things in the matter to matter world. I had to navigate the the labyrinth miasma of that world, um, and be able to transcend a surgery that put in over 10 metals. I'm sorry, 10 inches of metal into my spine, fusing 5 vertebrae, and then also go through the process of recovering from that, and then move into a state of knowing from a really deep soul state that I would not complete this initiation if I didn't remove all the metals from my spine, my entire lumbar spine. And so that's what I did with a second neurosurgeon after moving to Singapore. And I did that within 11 months of the original fall. And then I prepared by putting myself. So I was teaching in Singapore. Well, I was living in Bali at the time, and I was teaching in Singapore and doing the Asian circuit of Hong Kong and Tokyo and Japan, and I would do this 3-country circuit and live in Bali. And so in Singapore, I had support there. I had a community. I had people that were part of my work, as well as friends and some family, and they were able to establish this space where I could land from Bali, and basically before I went into this surgery, kit everything out into like a semi-light deprivation chamber, and where I could basically go into my version of the cave in all places of this really busy city in Singapore. But I had I had a really quiet and Zen space to do this work. So I had to prepare this before going underneath the knife with the neurosurgeon in Singapore to take all the metals out. And so that's what I did. And I basically, I had no idea how long it was going to take. No one knew. The surgeon that performed the surgery said in 1,000 surgeries, he's never taken this much metal out of an individual's spine for them to ever become a normal walking person again. And so,
It had to be
I
scary.
had to really do a deep dive into epigenetics, neuroplasticity, really studying neuroscience and understanding how the spine works in relationship to the brain, and how the whole body intelligence works from a sort of major left brain perspective, because I obviously was teaching from a mystical perspective. I'd come from Tibetan Buddhism, Hawaiian Huna, Egyptian iconography and cosmology and understanding. So for me, as well as Taoist understanding and the Asian influence. So for me, I was more of a mystic. So I didn't have the science. So this all came together, and I really got to work with amazing beings like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and got to sit with like
Yes.
Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden, and those three amigos. And so they really assisted me, and especially doing Dr. J's work. And I would say that through understanding what they've already established as a pathway of fusing these two worlds together through demystifying this process, and really anchoring science as the new religion, especially neuroscience, that it really assisted me to bring this together in my world after doing the work, and then applying that in this process, so that I would have the cognitive coherence to be able to speak to all these white coats these medical world people, and be very clear and specific about what I wanted and what I was going to do to be able to achieve complete homeostasis and absolute spontaneous healing and spontaneous regeneration. So that is what came out of it after almost 70 days in this semi-light deprivation chamber that I created. And I did the last basically almost 3 weeks with no food and only water. And so I was able to recreate a whole new spine from scratch. And I was told by the non-physical divine intelligence that overlights my work and my soul path and my blueprint, that I now, when I took off this whole body brace that I had been wearing this whole time, that I would now be walking in a 22-year-old new spine, and in some respects a whole new body and a whole new timeline. And that's what I did. I had to regenerate bone and tissue and nerve cells, and this work continues. It's not something that's a process that's just all of a sudden stopped. It's a inner evolving, innerology process that is truly the foundation for the miracle work that's coming out, and that will be my new service ray. And I had to put, all 20 years of my spiritual path, as well as my teaching and being a student, into practice, like for real. And obviously my body was the guinea pig, and so that was the only way. And so after that, I just basically was able to.
I wonder if there's anyone else who's ever done that. I doubt it. I mean, it's a miracle. It's no wonder you got the name.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was the neurosurgeon themselves who called me the miracle. They just were blown away. They wanted to study me. They couldn't believe it. They called me a medical miracle. They said you're 0.001% of the population. I mean, of course, this is in Singapore. I'm sure in other countries. I mean, I personally, the only other two people that I've met who've done what I've done, obviously in a different way, and they had different stories leading up to their quote unquote fall, or their, their breaking into full paralysis, is Dr. Joe and another brother that I actually met at a Dr. Joe advanced training event, who lives in New York. But those are the only two others that I know that have done, have gone through something similar and comparable, in the world.
Dr. Joe, somebody had wanted to get on my show too, because he, I know I had, I first heard about your story on Laura Eisenhower's show, and I was dumbfounded. I go, oh my God, I gotta have this guy on. This is an amazing story. And it is. And you put in the work, and you put in, I mean, just the thought of it alone is so profound, that you were able to accomplish what you accomplished through your meditation and what you're currently describing. It is a miracle. Thank you for sharing that.
The job now is to make sure everyone else can become miracles, and that they never forget it, because human life is a miracle. And we've chosen to believe, and through the power of suggestibility, accept, believe, and surrender, so much of this dissonance, so much of this programming and patterning, and more than ever before, we all have to remember that in every breath we can shift our vibration and our patterning to fully self-realize that we are human miracles, and that this is our birthright. And that I strongly believe that in order to fulfill my mission with a new type of university and resilient community, that I have to share and overflow and facilitate and be of service to getting this work out, so that other people can really drop in to their own version of spontaneous regeneration, and spontaneous resurrection and spontaneous healing, because we have that power to do that. And this is, I don't think there's anything less than full self-care mastery, because right now mental health is really destroying, or at least the non-inclusivity of acknowledging mental health as a number one foundational, just the vital importance, the core value of mental health, because the disregarding of mental health, especially radiant mental health, is destroying the planet. And that's what's really creating this miasma. That's what's creating these technologies, is because we don't want to take omniversal, omnipotent, omniscient responsibility for our actions. And it's much easier to rely on technology. It's much easier to rely on these things. But it's going to be a point coming up soon where it's going to literally destroy us. It's going to destroy us.
You're giving me goosebumps. So I know what you're saying is truth. And
we're not there yet, Gail, but we're pretty damn close. I mean,
yes.
Honestly, the technology has already been invented. It's just on the back burner. It's being waited for the right time to be launched, so to speak. The new upgraded technological version of the human being. But
the good stuff you're talking about?
I'm talking about both sides of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But I strongly believe, from the perspective of my personal inner evolution to this moment, is that we have the innerology to transcend all technology. And this is what all the different rishis and sages and masters and avatars and mystics and magicians and Buddhas and lamas and rinpoches and yogis and gurus and blah blah blah, yada yada yada, you put whatever word you want to it, they all just equate to one level of intelligence that has fully aligned with who they really are and their great unified field I am presence. And I really strongly believe the more time that we can embrace the void and bring the void into our living states, into our daydream, because we only have a night dream and we have a daydream. These are really the two different states. And then we have the dreamless state, which is a third state. Okay. But there's these three states, and we have to be able to bring our ability to love the void and become one with the void and align with the voidal intelligence, and then bring it out into this 5 sensory 3D world that really is shifting so dramatically. And I don't think it's going to stop. And the more that we can embrace this voidal intelligence, the more that we can embrace this unified darkness, we have a power that is unstoppable, that is completely unlimited, and that is our access point to the eternal infinite now.
That was an awesome presentation there, what you just said. And you know what I'm hoping is that by someone knowing some of the things that you managed to do, that there would be some kind of 100 monkey effect. Is that to know that you have far more power than you ever realized, because it's been so suppressed, it's been so mixed up with this miasma, like you say, that pulling yourself out of that and being able to have the kind of awareness that you have is possible through inner work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't know really what to do with the inner work, and I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, other than you say meditation. So and things like dark night of the soul. Sometimes people don't know what these things mean or how to go about trying to discover more of themselves. Oh, there we go again. I don't know what that's all about, but anyway.
Well, it's the dark night of the soul. That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
I guess we're supposed to go into the dark night right now, you know, and embrace it.
Apparently. that was a clue.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay attention. This
Pay
is important.
Yeah,
Okay.
144%. So,
But,
yeah. So I don't know. Did you have a question about that?
only if only to the extent that maybe you could explain to people what that means. I mean, I have an idea. I see it as sorting through, like you did when you were 20. I mean, all the things in your life. What am I doing? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Where is this coming from? Why did I react that way? Things of that nature.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've had several dark nights in this existence, in this body, absolutely
Mhm.
for sure. And obviously told you the story about one of my first rites of passage where I went into a dark night, death,
The ocean,
rebirth,
yeah.
back into life, life initiation. Um, for me, a dark night of the soul is a rites of passage, you know, and basically our westernized system, we're not taught in our
No.
educational K through 12. We're not taught about rites of passage. We're not taught about what it means to look at life as an initiation and not as an accident, you know? And so, um, accidents for me are initiations, and they happen at times in our life when we are getting off track, or we had the signs, maybe the symbols, maybe the nudges or the intuition, you know, or we've had dreams, or we've had little voices speaking to us, or we've had other people mention things, or even directly, um, and that we're not on track. That whatever we've been doing, whether it's for 20 years, whether it's 10 years, 5 years, doesn't matter the time, and how we've been doing it, is no longer constructive for the soul, and that the soul is actually realigning us for another track, and yet it's like pulling on us, but we're still, our body and our analytical mind, right, are still stuck on this track.
Oops.
And we stay on that track, whether mainly because of habits and behaviors, but it's also, we don't want to make change, right? Because we don't want to transform. We don't want to. Imagine the caterpillar saying,
Going
"I
out
don't,
of
I
your
don't."
comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine the caterpillar saying, "I don't want to become a butterfly." Like, no, 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 no. I want to just stay a little caterpillar forever. You know, I don't want to cocoon, right? So the cocooning process is that fear. It's like the caterpillar is like, oh my God, holy shit. I've got to like go into this, its own little cave, its own little womb, but it creates it for itself, right? And we can do the same thing. And I love this analogy. I use it all the time. I know many other people do, but it's like that fear before that first, you know, the first cocoon is the first silk aspect of the cocoon is being woven, is that caterpillar's fear of what is going to become beyond the beyond, like what's going to happen next. And we have to embrace the initiation of the dark night. The dark night is where everything that we have created in our lives through our habits, behaviors, and our belief systems, you know, our thoughts and our feelings, right? Electromagnetic beings. Then it comes to, okay, what if all that disappears? Well, guess what? That all is going to disappear at the end of your life, anyways. But if you're having a dark night of soul, it's asking you to look at that now, because your time and what you've chosen to do as part of your narrative, your storyline, it's asking you to walk through this portal. And it's very scary at first. It's freaky. It brings up all of our fears. It can bring up, you know, childhood stuff. It can bring up dysfunctional relational stuff. It can be triggered by all that stuff too. It can bring up mommy daddy issues. It can bring up our disgust, our shame, our blame, our self-judgment. It can be judgment upon ourselves. It could be triggered by getting the flu. It can be triggered by SARS 1 or SARS 2. It could be, there's so many endless. It could be a car incident, accident. It could be, all these different things. It could trigger us to go like, okay, you're not listening. You're going to have a dark night of the soul. If you don't listen and make this transformation, you don't go in and really start to merge with the timeline of where your soul is, but you're here going this way and the soul is going this way. And the soul's trying to drag the rest of you from here, but it can't do that. It's like, so it says, okay, boom, right here, we're going to meet right here at the train station of the soul meeting the personality and the body and the analytical mind. And we're going to ask you right now, okay, we're all going to have to get together. And if you don't do that meeting,
amazing.
so if you don't,
profound words here.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't do that meeting and you're all one, then you are going to really have to leave, because you're not going to fulfill your soul blueprint and the narrative that you chose before you came into your body. We all have certain pivot points or chapters in our narrative, in our story. And we all have a unique story. And we all have a blueprint for consciousness. And we all choose specific points of chapters. You can call them themes of chapters. And some of us want to stay in one chapter. We're so attached to it. We think it's going to be permanent. It's going to be forever. We have security. We got money. We got the cars. We got the things. We got the family. We got the children. We got all these things that have made up this chapter. And yet the soul is saying, hey, there's another chapter happening, and you're not, and maybe some of those elements of those other previous chapter will go along in the story of your personal narrative, and maybe they won't. But if you don't spend the time to really like come together, to hui together, in Hawaiian, hui means to unite, to come together, to group, to form a cohesive field. If you don't hui with yourself, okay, you have to hui with all the different patterns and parts and facets and multiple aspects of self, and really ask, what is the soul want of all the other parts that are making up the experience for the soul to be in this inner evolutionary pattern of life. Then we're going to remove you from your body. We're going to remove you from the planet. And so obviously I went through that, and I've gone through 7 of these, and obviously I just talked about my 7th death, life, rebirth initiation to become Mirakle. But I feel like I have done this work because I had to kind of be the torchbearer. I've been the torchbearer like most of my life, like way ahead out of the pack. And now it's time to come back, and actually start handing those torches to other people again, and in a whole new manner, in a whole new timeline, as a whole new person, and a whole new body. And but other people are going through this right now, and they're either going to pass on through the death process, and we get to celebrate their existence and appreciate everything that they represented, even if it was abrupt, it was surprising, it was shocking, or the people are going to start awakening through the dark night. And I know that I've received that this is going to be one of the most crucial, collective, challenging initiations for a lot of us, especially those of us who are playing a lead by example role, or some level of inspiring or influencing. Gonna have to start like lighting a lot more torches up before it's too late.
This is what we need: organized light, just like they had organized dark. They're far more organized than the light has been.
Yep, they are.
And the light has been infiltrated, like you said, by materialism, spiritual materialism, and so on. It's just a problem, but nothing that can't be fixed and changed. And it's my understanding that at one time humanity was extremely powerful until, you know, some archons and reptilians and so on started to manipulate us in additional ways. But that's water under the bridge at this point. The most important thing right now is for us to work on ourselves and to have that
144%.
dark night of the soul, and to I like the way you explained about the soul, you know, and pulling over, you know, one's going one path and you're going the other way, and the soul's trying to wake you up.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, I mean, it's like a freaking slinky, you know, it's like a titanium slinky, you know, and eventually just, and sometimes when that happens, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you can call it what you will, but that backlash can take you out completely, and sometimes if it leaves you half alive, then you have to find a way to come back, and usually that means that you have to bring all of your existence to that new timeline. And you know, it's obviously something that I have had some experience with. And so I get to
heavy
be,
duty experience, I might add.
yeah, I get to be the way shower for that, and assist and support others. And yeah, I feel ready for that, and I feel like everyone is going to have to go through this. I mean, sure, some people have already been through that, like myself, in their own version, and there's many. I mean, there are many that are needing this right now, and if they can learn the steps, and if the dark night of the soul can be demystified, that's really what my work is right now, and that's the content that I'm creating. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah.
And I think you're doing some of that right now by explaining it to this audience, and I really appreciate that tremendously, because we're here to bring the light forward, and that's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And recognizing what's harmful to our future and our well-being as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to bring this to a close, because I have to keep it under 2 hours, or it won't go up on one or two of the other channels. But this has been an absolutely wonderful and fascinating talk, and I can't thank you enough for taking this time and spending it with me. I'm honored, and I hope we meet again. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, I know I know we had pre-planned to do this in a timeline in the past, so many moments, but it was perfect for this day. And I just want to say, I noticed on the chat that people are asking about what they can do to stay connected and start doing this work now. Well, I'm working on my new service online portal, and I really pray it's going to get up soon, but I don't want to put a timeline on it. But in the meantime, you know, I am working with people privately that just have known me from many years before, and if that's an interest for people to go into private counseling or to set something up, they can contact me. And you know, there's also a lot of great there's a lot of great material on Communiversity Portal, which is my YouTube channel, and you can subscribe, join, watch the videos there. It's all free. There's actually several meditations up there that will help to get you into the void, as well as some different breath light exercises. And I can send you in the notes, Gail. I can send you, you know, obviously I don't know if you have my URLs or some of my socials, but yeah, I'm on social media.
I think they're in the
All that.
description, because I had
Okay.
some of them in
Maybe I
in
sent
the
you on the email, right?
email. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
took what
Okay.
was in the email and I put it
Okay.
up, and there are a few things on there I'd like to talk to you about too. So if you would, I would love to have you back again, because you're a wealth of information, and I know it will help people. And I didn't advertise ahead of time that we were having this session. I just didn't get a chance to. And maybe in the future, if we do that, then there'll even be more people in the chat, and you can answer even more questions if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. We can definitely we can set something up.
And you can keep us apprised of where you're at with your the programs you're developing.
Absolutely, 144%.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to have to close this down, and it's a wrap, so to speak.
Okay.
And
Awesome,
thank
Gail.
you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so great to connect with you, and yeah, many blessings to everyone on the call, and yeah, definitely I look forward to sharing whatever you have, if it's on VMO or YouTube or Rumble or whatever you use. I don't know. It looks like you use Rstream, but send me a link and I can get it out to
definitely, I
my
will.
network. And
Thank you.
look forward to sharing more. And yeah, mahalo keakua, and yeah, deep aloha from the islands of Hawaii.
All right. Thank you so much again.
Okay.
Much love.
Yeah, you too. Much love. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
We'll stand. We'll stand. We will stand. Standing tall and standing.